Welcome back. Now, in my business and in your business, if you're going to buy real estate, that real estate is going to have an assessor assess the property for ad valorem taxes. That doesn't count market values. It doesn't count appraised values. And so I can see, and I certainly have been in that place myself, there's a lot of confusion, all right? So from my experience, tax assessed value is determined by the assessor as a percentage. Now, I said percentage of the fair market value. I didn't say it was the whole market value. So this is a big deal if you heard what I just said, a percentage. So I'm in the business of purchasing property, government properties. When I buy tax defaulted properties, I buy this real estate at auction, so I try to buy it low so I can sell it low and make a profit. So I'm a buyer, and I want to sell for a profit and do it quickly. So in the tax defaulted business, I have plenty of business because all 3,000 plus counties sell tax defaulted properties. All right, so when they do the auction, this is important to you, all the auction properties, when they announce them, will have a tax assessed value. That's not the market value. That's not an appraised value. It's a tax assessed value that they're appraising so they can assess an ad valorem taxes. All of what I said is important. So the challenge is, how did the assessor determine that value? So they don't tell me every little detail, but I can tell you, sometimes they're going to think about, is it square footage? Is it the local values? Is it recent comparable sales? All right, these are all questions. I don't know. But a tax assessed value, generally speaking, will be lower than the market value. Do I know that's always going to be accurate? I don't. But I'm trying to get a difference in your mind between assessed value, market value, and appraised value. And that's important. That's the information you're going to need. Now, earlier I mentioned using a percentage of market value, and that's what the assessed value tells us they're going to do. They're going to use a percentage of that. All right, now the information is important because if they're only using a percentage of market value, that means the assessment is going to be lower than the market value. If they're only using a percentage of the market value, that tells me that the appraisal or the assessment they're going to make is going to be lower than the market value. So in some instances, the assessor could drive out in a car and check the property. I don't see a lot of the vehicles out there doing that, but I don't know how they determine that value. But I do know that they tell us that they're using a percent of the market's value. So assume that they're using that percentage. That's going to be really to your advantage. So the market value and the market and the appraised value are the ones that most people are really concerned about if they're buying in the retail market. We're not buying in the retail market. We're trying to buy in the market that's tax defaulted. And so we're getting a lot of indication of those assessments. In other words, the assessed value for tax value. All right, so the market value could be much higher. So I'm giving you a real insight now. If the assessed value is high at one number, but the market price is higher, then you want to try to get that property and maybe you can make a profit on it. All right, so the point is the two numbers could be significantly better and significantly different. So you want to check that out. So from my experience, at all the property auctions where they're actually selling the property, they're going to announce what the tax assessed value is. All right, that's not the market value. It's not the appraised value. It's the assessed value for tax purposes. All right, so when they have the auction, they'll post the assessed value. When they put it on the website, they'll post the assessed value. When they put it in any announcement they're handing out, like in the newspaper or something like that, they'll post the assessed value. All right, it could be much different than the other one. All right, this is good insight for you to have when you're going to auctions or when you're just buying regular real estate. It's especially good if you're buying tax defaulted real estate, which is the business that I'm in. All right, so what am I saying? I'm saying that this information is important because the average person does not understand assessed value, market value, and appraised value. Now, the appraised value is what's going to be required at a bank. If a bank's going to lend money, they're going to hire a certified person to go out and give an actual appraisal on that property with a point in time what that property's worth, and then they'll lend based on that appraised value. You and I, if we're in the tax lien and deed business, we're working on assessed value, all right? That's really a tax assessment thing that the county comes up with so they can create the ad valorem tax. All right, so these things can be quite confusing. Believe me, Even people talking about it are confused right in the middle of their own conversation because they mix up assessed, appraised, and market. They always mix them up. All right, so you're going to have to sit down and say, look, I'm trying to buy this property. The assessed value is this. There's a good chance the market value is higher because the assessed value is a percentage of market value. I hope I've made this clear to all of you. Once again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm darn sure not a tax assessor. I'm just trying to give you some insight to how this whole thing works. Now, the status of what you're doing is up to you. All right, if you're really motivated, you want to have a large portfolio of properties, this is a business you can do that. If you want to make multiples of six-figure income, you can certainly do it. But as you've just seen, you have to think a little bit out of the box. So if you're a problem solver, this is going to be a perfect business for you. You don't have to have a license from the governor. You have to just think and use your own brain and be able to do this. So ask yourself, you want more freedom in your life? You want to think independently? You want to work independently? You can certainly do this. Now, don't quit your job. Number one rule from Ted is don't quit your job. Number two rule from Ted is read rule number one again. Don't quit your job. Keep your job. This is part-time work. You can learn this. You can go to auctions. When you get to six-figure income, then maybe you can consider dropping out of that job. But don't quit your job. All right, so if you have a dream and you're looking to be in a certain place in so many years, this business will allow you to work when you want to work and do the kind of work that you want to do, and you'll be able to make good profits. Opportunity seekers learn when it comes to tax defaulted property that the auction that's taking place, in most cases, the starting bids are just the back taxes. Now that's going to be considerably different than the tax assessed value. These properties could be discounted 60, 70, and 80%. This is an opportunity that once you learn how to do it, you'll be able to make money for the rest of your life. Why? Because they'll have tax default auctions for the rest of your life. Now, I realize that I'm not giving you quotes from Webster's Dictionary or Investopedia or any one of those places. I'm just giving you it from a practical standpoint, and that's what I am. I'm a practical guy doing this business. The government assessor is responsible for assigning a value for taxes. If you can remember that, that's going to change the whole ballgame. Now, I just ran out of time, so I'm going to see you on the next video. But if you'd like to have an auction list, a sample of it, there's one right below me. You can just register there, and you get a sample of an auction list. I'm Ted Thomas.